What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. Today I want to talk about Pan-Africanism and parity, because some believe that in order for Pan-Africanism to work, it requires parity. I disagree, because parity has nothing to do with Pan-Africanism. Let me explain. Right, but first I want to give credit to Haven Bullets for coming up with a great term that we should be using. This is his term, right? Just like pretending is mine, Cunarian is mine. All right, so if you ever heard the word pretending and Cunarian, those belong to me. And continental African, I started that too. So those are three belong to me. All right, I'm the originator of those three words, right? Used in discourse that you hear all over the place. Now, Haven Bullets has come up with a great term, right? Little P Pan-Africans and Big P Pan-Africans, right? Now, little P Pan-Africans, most African Americans are little P Pan-Africans. They don't call themselves Pan-African. They don't go around with the flag and, yeah, Pan-African. They're not actively fighting any sort of revolution kinetically or in the hearts and minds of people, you know, in discourse. But what they're doing is small things, right? They'll go to a Caribbean restaurant. They don't think about it. They say, oh, I'm gonna go to a Jamaican restaurant instead of the Chinese restaurant. That's Pan-Africanism. Oh, let me go get my hair done by this, you know, by these African hair braiders. That's Pan-Africanism. Oh, let me go into this African restaurant and get me some African food this weekend instead of going to the other one. That's Pan-Africanism. Oh, let me go to this Ethiopian restaurant instead of the Indian restaurant, right? That's Pan-Africanism. So Pan-Africanism, small Pan-Africanism, is African Americans and black people in general practicing the art of commerce with each other and considering each other when it comes to commerce, supporting artists who are from different countries but black, because we want to support them and we enjoy their music. That's Pan-Africanism. Black people going to Carnival, flying to Trinidad, like half the African Americans flying to Trinidad to go to Carnival. That's Pan-Africanism, right? The whole carnival itself is Pan-Africanism because it's celebrating different African cultures, right? Different African cultures coming together to celebrate, you know, one thing or another. The liberation of the individual group of Africans from that particular place, from some particular freaking colonizer, right? We got our Mardi Gras, which is basically Carnival. It's our version of Carnival, right? We got our holidays, what is it called? Labor Day, which was another form of our carnival, right? Where we black folks get together, right? The Puerto Ricans come out, they black. They about the blackest goddamn, you know, as far as like sentiment and heart and spirit, the Puerto Ricans are probably the blackest Latinos we got, right? As far as their, you know, how they feel, you know. When they have Puerto Rican Day Parade and we out there supporting the Puerto Ricans, that's Pan-Africanism. When you listen to bachata, merengue, salsa, anything that black people created anywhere, that's Pan-Africanism. When you're enjoying or purchasing Caribbean music from them, that's Pan-Africanism. So the majority of people do practice what we call Pan-Africanism. Now that's the small hat Pan-Africans. Now you got the big hat Pan-Africans like myself, right? And people like me who actively go and do active things under the guise of Pan-Africanism and unity. Those who sow discourse, right, online with the clear intent to unify, right? That's a big hat Pan-African. I'm a big hat Pan-African. I'm using my energy and my life force and my time to promote Pan-Africanism actively. Big hat Pan-African, right? And it doesn't require parity. You see, because if you understand what's going on, if you're an African American, right? African Americans like to tout themselves as being premium nigga. All right, the premium black guy. We have all the resources. A lot of people brag. We got most of the resources. Yes, we earned everything we got. We earned, right? Nothing was given to us. So just being in proximity of white people did not help us. It hindered us. And despite that, we're still the most successful ethnic group on the planet that did not subjugate another person. So you take away subjugation, we're the #1 ethnic group, the most successful ethnic group, African Americans on the planet, because we managed to get to the position that we are in without subjugating somebody else or stealing somebody else's shit to get there. All right. If you add that, if you say subjugation is okay, then white people are the #1, and China is #2, because they do it too. Right? But as far as legitimately pulling themselves up from their bootstraps, that's African Americans. Now, if we have that much power and leverage, we must understand that the reason why certain African countries don't have that leverage is because they haven't been able to create the environment to create that. So you can't expect somebody from a continent of Africa to be able to do the same thing or wield the same amount of leverage that an African American can. So just because an African American has the ability, right, to go to Africa and start a business, right, doesn't mean that we need to find parity with the people over there to where they need to come over here and start and do this and do that as equal as us. If it's not all equal in the real world, then how can you expect it to be equal, parity? It's not true, right? And then people talk about the systems of Africa is not professional. There's no, things are too rocky, which is true, right? That is the case. There are things within Africa that make business being done difficult because they don't have the infused structures of the West. But keep in mind, how did the West get those solid structures, right? How do we get to a point that we have somewhat of a legal structure to be able to conduct business despite the situation we find ourselves in today with the current leadership overall? How do we have all these structures that allow people to lift themselves up off the ladder of infrastructure to make themselves viable, right? How do you do that? It took hundreds of years. Listen, it took hundreds of years. It took the enslavement of an entire group of people. It took several genocidal wars and several forms of purposeful discrimination for America to get here. So how can we hold African countries who are still being subjugated by the white Western powers that maintain their power by subjugating these very same African people and countries by buying and owning and threatening their politicians the same way they own and threaten our politicians? How do you expect them to be able to do the same thing we can do? And when it comes to South Africa, another case where it took genocide, right? Clear genocide, apartheid, right? And white people being allowed to be as evil as they possibly can to build that infrastructure that they have in South Africa, right? That some Africans get to enjoy, right? Because of proximity whiteness, but that infrastructure was built for white people. Just so happens that some of those Africans have pulled themselves out of, certain positions to where they can also enjoy it, or at least aesthetically, they're looking around and say, look at our infrastructure. But it's the infrastructure that was built off the backs of your ancestors and infrastructure you don't own. And that very same beautiful infrastructure that you're so proud of, South Africa, all right, still doesn't belong to you. It's not yours. The country doesn't belong to you. It still belongs to the international conglomerate of white Europeans who still want to maintain their colonies, right? And the energy, all right, should be geared towards those white people who control the system. They control the environment, right? The same white people that you guys tout as your brothers and sisters in the Rainbow Coalition in South Africa are the same white people who went to all those neighboring African countries and destabilized those countries and put in puppet masters, right, who are idiot and stupid and shouldn't be in leadership positions to become little dictators, holding back those people, those African citizens who are fully capable, if given the opportunity by their government, right, to thrive and to build the infrastructure that you see in South Africa or in the West, right? So, of course, immigration happens when you force people, put people in a terrible situation, right, and they look to relieve themselves by going somewhere that has a slightly less terrible situation. And that's the same way where you see the Jamaicans getting mad about the Haitians going to America, right? And you see FBA using that and say, look, they don't want the Haitians too. It ain't got nothing to do with them being Haitian. What it has to do is Jamaica also, right, is being held back and being held down by the travel industry, where you got big conglomerates who own all the arable land, own all the beaches, and are suffocating the small population of Jamaica. And then on top of that, you want to infuse it with other immigrants, right? Other people who also are suffering, right, via the white Westerns' manipulation of Haiti, because they're still mad that the Haitians was the first black republic. They're still mad that Haiti destroyed Napoleon's army. And white people have never forgotten their global embarrassment Haiti gave them. And they do not want Haiti to be the leader of black revolution on the Western Hemisphere, which they in fact should be, right? So there's always constant pressure being put on the Haitians, no matter where they go, by white people who want to keep them down. That's why they always talk shit about Chicago. Chicago is a point of black excellence. They always want to point at Chicago, even though Chicago is not the most dangerous city. It doesn't have the most problems, but because it was founded by a Haitian, by the way, that means they contributed to the greatness of African Americans, because Haiti because Chicago is a hub for African American excellence, right? Because that is the case, because Atlanta is the case, because DC is the case, white people pretend to concentrate on black enclaves of success, and they dehumanize them, they downgrade them, and they highlight every crime. That's what white people do. The problem is black people are believing what the white people are saying because they're not doing their own actual research. They're just listening to hearsay. White people know how to pass messages to a coon so that the coon can pass the message to the masses. That's how they do it, right? So what we have to do is we have to understand Pan-Africanism is the solution to all these problems. You can't keep blaming Pan-Africanism for tribalism. It's literally an oxymoron. You can't blame continental Africans for all continental Africans for not understanding Pan-Africanism when Pan-Africanism was created because of the transatlantic slave trade, when those very same Africans, their ancestors, were being taken across the water, being enslaved by an alien group of European savage barbarians. And despite the fact that there was Fulani, Hausa, Akan, and Igbo, they had to get over their historical shit in order to fight against and survive this white demon, which in turn is an African American. We are the embodiment of Pan-Africanism. So you can't say, oh, Pan-Africanism is not working. Pan-Africanism is everywhere around Africa. We have organizations trying to push Pan-Africanism. You have Pan-Africanism activities. Pan-Africanism is alive and well in Africa, and it is currently working. But because it's currently working, and the white people who know that Pan-Africanism is literally the most dangerous thing to white superiority, they are using all their apparatuses, all their tools, all their coons from every black coon on the payroll is being used right now, especially in South Africa, to slow down the economic and social development of Africa, because Africa is on the rise. Now, the news that you hear, that's the hyperbolic news, the drama news that got everybody talking, but you guys are not talking about all the Pan-Africanism activities that's currently stitching Africa together. Not one of these people who are critiquing Pan-Africanism is actually talking about what Pan-Africanism is doing and what Pan-Africanism is accomplishing, because no other group is accomplishing anything other than Pan-Africans. You can't name me a group that is accomplishing anything. Even our local domestic neighborhood freedom fighter groups, like the new what's them guys up there in New Jersey and Philly, New Age, right? That's not just all African Americans. They're Afro-Caribbeans, Afro-African, all kind of Africans from every walks of life that's involved in the communities that they live in, policing the community, make sure that the lower members of our community are being held accountable, and that the people who serve our communities are treating us with respect or else, right? We have many different organizations, even the Black Panthers. That was a Pan-African organization, even though they were a black nationalist organization, but it was under Pan-Africanism. And we also included rebels who were part of the Japanese revolutionary movement and the Indian revolutionary movement, right? Some of them Indians about that life, right? And one of those Indians was Kamala Harris's mother, who was a part of the Black Panthers, and her father, who also was a part of the black group who was the progenitors of the Black Panthers. That's why I found it absolutely ridiculous that you didn't think that this thoroughbred Kamala Harris, who literally got a pedigree of black activism, even from her mama Indian side, you guys still threw her under the bus because you listened to what hearsay she said. She was both not black enough and too black at the same time, and she was a woman. So she had all kind of shit going against her. Right? But you see how easily propaganda can be used against an individual, right? Who is going to promote this, right? Her daddy was about Pan-Africanism. Her mama was about Pan-Africanism and pro-blacknism, but y'all wasn't about that, right? So that's why she's not there. Pan-Africanism is under attack, right? But Pan-Africanism is under attack because it's working. If it wasn't working, it wouldn't be under attack. That's why FBA is not under attack, because it ain't gonna do shit. FBA is a controlled opposition party. FBA has no motion, no movement. They're not delineating because they don't know how to do that, right? Because if they did, they wouldn't be talking about and having discussions that they're having today, right? They are stuck in arrested development. They're stuck in circle jerks, in echo chambers of their egos, and there's nothing we can really do about it, right? But their complaints, some of their complaints are valid. They're just not mature enough to be able to deal with, siphon through, and fix those complaints, right, to move on, because conversations are meant for people to solve issues and move on, and they don't want to do that because, like I said, arrested development. They're the most unintelligent group of Africans on the planet. FBA, ADOS, all of them, pretendians, they're all just gone, right? And we all knew that everybody's not coming with us. So these are the ones who have labeled themselves as not coming with us. It's cool. It's fine. That's a decision, right? But Pan-Africanism is working. And I don't need my brothers and sisters to be able to do the same thing for me, right? For me to do something for them. Pan-Africanism is not transactional. See, that's a white thing. That's individualistic. That's European shit. We're talking about community. That means you got to be able to do something and want to do something for somebody without expecting something in return. The sacrifice of you not getting something, you not getting a pat on the head for a good deed, right? The fact that if you need that, then you're not a Pan-African. If you need somebody to pay you what you believe you're worth because you're doing some sort of Pan-African activity, then, then you're not really a Pan-African. You just want to do business to get money from black folk. You just want to just make your money. Just because you make money with black folks don't make you Pan-African. Just because you in Africa don't make you Pan-African, right? Just because you wear dashikis don't make you Pan-African. Just because you call yourself a Pan-African don't make you Pan-African. Just because you talk about, bullet points and shit that happened to us and complain and none of that shit makes you Pan-African. There's plenty of people who call themselves Pan-African that are not. Just like there's plenty of people that call themselves preachers and pastors, but they're not. They're not men of God. They're men of the devil. Right? But they hide behind the cloth of God in order to participate in their devilish activities. Do y'all know anybody that hides behind a particular movement in order to hide their devilish activities? Tell me in the comment section. Do you know anybody that pretends to be Pan-African but don't really do anything Pan-African? You know anybody that wear dashikis and make great speeches, right? But don't actually do anything with the influence that they have? You know anybody like that? I know a few. Y'all know a few, right? So what I'm saying is, Pan-Africanism has nothing to do with, can you pay me back? If you're a teacher, you teach your students. Your students don't know. If you think you big dog, teach little dog. If you think you know more than somebody else, you have to teach them to be able to do it. You can't get mad because people don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Is the educational system in Africa the same education system we got in America? Does everybody have access to the internet to learn this information that's flowing around? Or are they still subjugated to those European books that's in their schools? So you got to before you start blaming which you cannot blame an ideology for other people not doing or being xenophobic. That doesn't even make sense. It almost makes it sound like you're the enemy of Pan-Africanism, trying to be a snake in the grass, trying to get into Pan-Africanism to destroy it from the inside and confusing people who otherwise would like to be a Pan-African, but based off the definitions created by those who are not Pan-African, those people who are looking for them for guidance are being led astray. Okay? So, but yeah, Pan-African does not require parity, right? It will be nice. It will be nice to get to a point to where all Africans can show parity to all Africans. But that's a work in progress, not something that's required for Pan-Africanism to work. I don't need a pat on the back for Pan-Africanism. If I buy something over here, sometimes I got to expect not to get my money back because it's in the greater good of Pan-Africanism. And when you do good things for people under the guise of Pan-Africanism, you don't throw it in your face. You don't throw it in their face. So that means when people who always talking about what African Americans did, what African Americans did for all these other people, you're sullying the accomplishment by throwing it in the people's face that you did this for them. Nobody wants to hear that, right? If you did this for them, you state that you do all these things that you've done, right? But you don't throw it in their face talking about, oh, I'm better than you because I did all of this. I'm better than you. You need to bow down. Nobody needs to bow down to an African American just because of our accomplishments. Nobody needs to shut the hell up and just let us talk because of our accomplishments. Nobody needs to do everything the way we do it just because we believe we can do it the right way. Nobody has to do that. Just because African American, yeah, we're prominent, we earn our position on this planet and our social standing. But at the same time, that doesn't give you right to look down upon anybody that look like you because they got a different accent, because their people wasn't put in a position to do the same thing that you did. Because I guarantee you, every single African, if the transatlantic slave trade would have went differently and they would have went to other parts of Africa and not West Africa, not Central Africa, just all East Africa, I guarantee you that those black people who were brought over to the Americas during the transatlantic slave trade would have been just as resilient. They would have came to the same conclusions, and they would have been just as excellent as us, West African, Niger Delta, Congo Africans, who were brought over here to the Western Hemisphere and built the white Wakandas for all these people. So no, we don't need parity. What we need is love. What we need is a sense of community. What we need is Father saying that all children in this village belong to me. What we need is black men treating black women like queens and expecting them to act like queens. What we need is black women to hold themselves to a higher standard, right? And treat their kings like kings when their king deserves to be a king. What we need is family. What we need is things that doesn't require money. See, money's not the answer to everything. That's why we black people have survived, because we know that there's value in this world besides money, even though money is a great help. But the thing is, if we tap into our community, we tap into our ability to be communal, we tap into our empathy for each other instead of giving it to everybody else, and we start concentrating with the tools that we do have, we can utilize small hat Pan-Africanism and big hat Pan-Africanism to make effective change. And parity is not required, because those who are able to succeed off the backs of our ancestors, off the backs of our elders, off the backs of us, and off the backs of our children, those, they will eventually, if taught right, they will understand the situation they find themselves in. They will appreciate their ancestors, which is obviously cultural consistency with us. Once they focus, once they have a way to focus, once they have a place and a platform to focus, once they have people who teach them how to focus, they will appreciate, and then they will pay it forward with the next group of people that they have to in turn fight to liberate them from one thing or another. Anyway, you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. It's Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.
Because Africans never got along, all Africans never got along or claimed, like, fool, that's the reason for the ideology. Fool, the reason you have the ideology is to create the consciousness, the political consciousness, to bring that about. There would be no need for it if there wasn't a need for it. See, critical thinking is hard to find nowadays.
In case people need to hear it come out of the horse's mouth, I don't need to claim pro-blackness or Pan-Africanist as long as your Pan-African and your pro-blackness is misogynistic and anti-woman. It's not a secret. Sorry. Newsflash.
In this Ugandan context, it's the same thing. I've said it I'm in a group chat with my people, and when I mention Ugandans as a whole, it's like, rah, we got to do for us. I'm like, no, but we're all one, but what? Then, you know, them man have done this, but we should look after ourselves because aren't you a true trolley and this type of thing?
So this is the tribes within Uganda.
It's got nothing to do with how much pride I have in my lineage to say I'm unified with all black people everywhere. It's got nothing to do with it. Doesn't diminish it in any way. There's no need for me to diminish my pride in my direct lineage to say that you were as much African as me. That doesn't. Why should it?
Pan-Africanism has a patriarchal problem. And what I mean by this is that there are far too many so-called Pan-Africanists who essentially posit that African liberation will be led by and centered around men, and essentially negate any role of women or queer people inside of African liberation. And the main problem for me is that Pan-Africanism as ideology is meant to liberate all African people. Pan meaning all. So it's meant to uplift the entire of African society. And last time I checked, queer people and women are part of African society. So this whole idea that African liberation will be done by men, centered around men, society will just be created by men is idiotic, and it is reactionary. And it just shows that Pan-Africanism is increasingly becoming a very empty, vague, and reactionary ideology. Because if we actually engaged with the revolutionary works of individuals like Thomas Sankara, who laid down the ideology of Pan-Africanism, they will know that women liberation is a key intrinsic part of this movement. There is no African revolution without a women revolution. There is no African liberation without liberation of African women. So this whole positing of African liberation centered around men, centered around the patriarchy, is idiotic, and it is reactionary, and it is destroying Pan-Africanism as an ideology and removing all revolutionary content inside of it. And even to go beyond Pan-Africanism as an ideology, if we just look at how we African people viewed women in our traditional societies, it was far more progressive than how a lot of African societies are organized today, and how a lot of these Pan-Africanists want African societies to be organized in future. Women had economic power. Power came down through the matrilineal line of succession. We had women actively holding public office as well. Like, women had degrees of influence over African society, but Pan-Africanists, or some Pan-Africanists today, are completely ignoring this and calling for subjugation of African women. It cannot work. It will not work, and we must push against this. We need to be vocal about the fact that Pan-Africanism seeks queer liberation, women's liberation, liberation for all African people, full stop. It is not centered around the patriarchy. It's not centered around any single pole of any group. It is liberation for all African people, or it's liberation for no African people, full stop. Pan-Africanism must abolish the nation-state framework, or it's not Pan-Africanism at all, in my opinion at least. Whenever discussions of Pan-Africanism come about, we always talk about within the nation-state framework of, unity between Nigeria and Ghana, unity between Ethiopia and Kenya, unity between Congo and Rwanda. Like, it's always within these nation-state frameworks. But what we are always missing is the fact that the nation-state framework is not indigenous to the African continent and was actually imposed upon us by European colonialists. The nation-state framework is a Eurocentric and Western conception of how people should organize themselves along ethno-cultural lines and attach themselves to a state to defend it and the whole board national barriers. That is not something that was indigenous African content. That's not something that we ourselves created. And if Pan-Africanism is understood as a liberatory project, as a liberatory program that seeks to decolonize African continents, it would also involve a deconstruction of a nation-state framework which was imposed on us through colonialism. Pan-Africanism for me would entail essentially the dissolution of national barriers, borders between the African continent, and the creation of a whole African continent united by our struggle against capitalism and imperialism, and devoid of any of these arbitrary national boundaries and borders that not even represent our divisions as a people. There's no real need for them anymore. And if we continue to posit Pan-Africanism as a project that will still involve borders, nation-state frameworks, all those Western concepts, then is it really a liberatory program, or is it simply another means of organizing the status quo?
Pan-Africanism is how black people are going to get reparations. People will hear that and they'll think, what does Africa have to do with black people getting reparations? Here's what it is. By 2100, Nigeria is going to have over 1 billion people. The population in the global south is rising. In the United States, it is dwindling. So, as we see what is happening with America, America is on the downturn. So it's like these countries in the global south, they're going to have much more leverage and bargaining power with the United States. Let's think about it like this. The civil rights movement would not have happened if it wasn't for the Cold War pushing the United States in that direction. But here's the thing about the civil rights movement. We still had to make that happen. We still had to get out in the streets. We still had to march and do all this stuff in order to put pressure on the government because they were trying to look good internationally for these African nations that were getting independence. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, in order for us to get reparations, it will be very strategic if these African nations are like, yeah, the United States, we're going to not do this type of business with you if you don't do right by black people, like people who came from us. That's how we got to have these strategic alliances with different African countries. So, when that time comes and they do have power, we'll be ready to enact that type of power as black Americans in front of the world stage. So it's like, now that we putting pressure on them in these reparations campaigns, it's like, oh shit, like if we don't give them reparations, these African nations are going to take money from us, anything like that. Any country in the global south, because the United States is not going to be the top dog forever. And it's like, unfortunately for black people, we were getting tricked into believing that white people just going to give us stuff and, like they're nice to us now. But it's like, reparations is $1 trillion venture. In order to do that, why would they just do that out of the kindness of their hearts? We still see how our communities look today. We still see all of these problems within our community, and we think that, this is the thing that they're going to solve. It's like, no. In order for that to happen, we have to make it happen for ourselves. And by doing that, we have to understand that anti-blackness and white supremacy is a globalized thing. We just saw all these European countries vote that the transatlantic slave trade, they didn't say it didn't happen, but they didn't vote about it being, about condemning it. That's Pan-Europeanism. So if they're engaging in Pan-Europeanism, which was birthed out of them subjugating Africa, why wouldn't we gain Pan-Africanism? It is politically unsophisticated. And that is how we're going to get what we want, by getting together with all the black people who have been wronged by this system of white supremacy. Because there's more of us than them. That's what makes them come together. They understand that. And we got to understand that our power lies in our numbers. And until we understand that, we're going to be behind. As the great Dr. Carr said in one of my classes at Howard University, a lady came into the classroom with some kids. She was like, oh yeah, like we're looking at different minority schools and stuff like that. Dr. Carr was like, we are the majority. It's like he shut her up because it's like, we're the majority. In America, we're not the minority. In America, we're not the majority. But worldwide, we the majority. We got to use that to our advantage. One of our biggest plays and advantages is numbers, especially with the world being all democratic and stuff like that. Now, all these countries have democracies. It's like, this is a democracy within itself. And obviously, we're not going to get hella Africans to come into America, but that is political power that we can use for our advantage, and we have to use it.
I'm so pro-black, you can't get me to involve myself in diaspora wars. I'm every nigga on this earth. I'm African, I'm Caribbean, I'm Afro-Latina, I'm Afro-European. If you're a nigga, I am you, you're me. I don't know what to tell you. You're me, you're me, I'm you. I don't know.
If you know how to play spades and you live in the DMV, then you have to be here every Thursday night. If you're interested in playing spades at Center Pocket on Thursday nights, it starts every Thursday at 6 p.m., hosted by the DMV Boston Runners. If you're looking for the best wings in Maryland, we got you. Here at Center Pocket, we have over 30 flavors of wings for you to try.
Happy Saturday, folks. It's your boy, Chef C. We located at 4514 Rhode Island Avenue. It's the African American Cafe. Come on down and support us. We got the fish and shrimp platters on deck. We got happy hour from 3 to 6. Come on down. Y'all know where we located at. Let's make it happen.
Exclusive. Pan-Africanism show. It's for my ladies. Come on, sis, let's do it.
I will love you anyway. Even if you cannot say, think you are the one for me. It is where you are to be. I just wanna satisfy you. You're not mine, I can't deny it. Don't you hear me talking, baby?
Hey, paradise.
Love you now or about for
Lady, let's go.
Yep, time to go. That motherfucker coming over here. Woo, shit. Hey, Carlo, bitch, look behind you. Woo, shit, motherfucker.
Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan!
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.